what's the best camera for professional commercial photography in 2025 and the near future? New cameras are getting out of control. It seems like camera brands have run out of things to innovate and now compete over superficial gimmicks like frames per second or in-body stabilization, which I'll make a separate video about. But in this video, I'll break down my simplified 5 criteria in picking the best camera for commercial and advertising photography, an industry that I've worked in for over 20 years, which is often viewed as the pinnacle of professional photography and the goal of many photographers who aspire to see their work grace the pages of a magazine or on a billboard. It's a world of high stakes, big budgets, and covers all sorts of photography, from studio to location, products to people, for a print in a magazine or a digital campaign on social media. With such a wide variety of factors, one may think there cannot be a camera that can cover it all. But stick around and I'll explain that not only is there such a camera, but also how to pick the right one. I've shot for global brands like Audi, Ferrari, HSBC, and Volvo, so I have some experience to back up the 5 criteria I think are must-haves in a camera for pros, some of which you might have overlooked or dismissed as unimportant. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What are your criteria? So in no particular order, let's start with megapixels. I know, seriously, why do megapixels still matter now that so many cameras have more than enough resolution? Well, it does matter because we have to consider that clients are more demanding than ever for resolution. Nowadays, clients want to maximize how their photography is used. So an image may be used across many different media. Take this image I shot for Audi a few years back. It was used in a variety of media with very different aspect ratios and cropping options, from a super wide horizontal billboard to a vertical poster at a bus stop. Here's me pixel peeping my own work. Clients don't usually know exactly how the photography will be used during the photo shoot, so I would give them a big safety net of extra space for them to crop away when they figure it out. And while AI can now gen fill areas in an image, it's still risky creating pixels instead of shooting the real thing. In other words, it's safer to shoot real pixels, then crop them away, rather than add fake pixels using AI. For now, anyway. So what megapixels are we talking about? I would say around 40 and above, considering that cropping would reduce it by about half in many cases. So 40 megapixels down to 20 megapixels, or 60 down to 30. That's why it's important to have enough resolution after cropping that still meets the output requirements for whatever media, especially for making prints due to its higher resolution demand. And the camera I used for the Audi shoot, a Phase 1 100 megapixel IQ3, which I must say is amazing image quality, but comes at a cost, not only because it's literally crazy expensive, but also because there's a compromise in speed and convenience, making it a very specialized camera, which I think is overkill for 90% of commercial shoots, unless you need to accommodate very extreme vertical and horizontal aspect ratios I just mentioned. So in summary, around 40 megapixels is the first criteria. Criteria number 2 is reliability, and I'm not talking about hardware, as most cameras are well made nowadays. You're not going to find buttons falling off. I'm referring to the camera's brain, the firmware, or more accurately, is reliability built into the firmware, especially when the camera is a new release? Or is the firmware riddled with bugs that will require months of patience waiting for a fix in a software upgrade? I think it really comes down to what each camera manufacturer prioritizes. Obviously, the best firmware is reliable and packed with new features, like better autofocus or maybe new video codecs. But if I had to choose, I would pick reliability all day, any day, over any fancy feature, as the stakes are too high in a professional setting if a camera fails. Shoots get ruined because of this. My experience leans towards Canon, which tends to release cameras with pretty reliable firmware. But comment below about your experience with firmware 1.0 on your camera. Was your camera reliable straight out of the box or otherwise? Okay, what's next after reliability? How about rentability? Now, this is something photographers may overlook. The need to rent equipment. I think most photographers, professional or not, own a kit, a core set of cameras and lenses and accessories that they justify owning because they are most often used. But many pros also need to consider occasions where they may need a piece of equipment that's not worth owning. That's where rentals come in. It could be a fisheye lens you need for a job that you normally wouldn't use, or a backup camera body because you're going to shoot in a remote location just in case something happens to the main camera. The bottom line is, you rent equipment to supplement your existing equipment, so it makes sense to own a camera brand that rental companies also keep in stock, which are the popular brands like Canon, Nikon, and Sony to name the top 3. These brands are the most well-stocked in rental companies around the world, which is worth considering buying into. Of course, there are other amazing cameras and lenses, but good luck finding a healthy selection of Leica or even Fujifilm gear at most rental shops. Case in point, take a look at lensrentals.com, for example, a popular online rental shop where there are only 13 Leica M lenses versus 74 Canon EF lenses or 45 Canon RF lenses, just to make sense to buy into a camera that's well represented by rental shops. The only other option is that if you have the means to afford buying all the gear for yourself. But for the rest of us, renting is the business of a professional. Number 4 is autofocus. Now, I didn't want to highlight any specific technology or feature, except this one, so please hear me out. I've used quite a few cameras, but the one that I've owned for the longest time was a Hasselblad 501C for 10 whole years. It was supremely basic with manual focus, manual exposure, manual everything. It doesn't even need batteries, if you can believe it. And I used it to shoot commercials for pretty big Canadian brands like Rogers, TD Bank, and Bell Canada, which taught me that the most basic camera can shoot for the biggest brands without fancy technology. I say this to give you an idea of the world I come from. But autofocus, especially really good eye detect autofocus, in today's cameras, is such a game-changing feature that I must include it in my top 5. Because it doesn't matter what kind of commercial photography you're into, you will likely to need to shoot people eventually, making eye detect autofocus even more important. Take a look at car photography, which has evolved into lifestyle photography, showing people and cars together, with no signs of changing. Same goes for other types of product photography. The human element is embedded into all genres now, and good eye detect autofocus can relieve the burden so much that the photographer doesn't even need to think about focusing that much. All camera makers know this and invest heavily in autofocus technologies, some better than others, with Sony, Canon, and Nikon leading the way. The last criteria is tethering, as in, can the camera tether reliably to a computer? In case you didn't know, this is a very common setup for commercial photo shoots, where each image captured from the camera is immediately transferred to the computer via a USB-C cable, hence being tethered, and shown on a laptop or computer screen. So while the photographer is shooting on camera, there's a digital technician, Digitech for short, whose job is to look at the images coming into the computer and verifying things like exposure, color, lighting, sharpness, etc. Things the photographer doesn't have time to check, especially while keeping a certain pace and rhythm when shooting people. At the same time, other stakeholders can also evaluate the images and make changes to improve the shot. Maybe a client has a suggestion, or the hairstylist wants to fix the model's frizzy hair. Being able to see these images as they are being shot allows everyone on set to work together and fosters a collaborative environment, which is a hallmark of any successful commercial shoot. Now, I'm not getting paid to say this, but Capture One has been the standard tethering software for most, if not all, commercial photographers, period. It's been the standard for years. Any Digitech will need to know the software inside and out, just like how assistants need to know Profoto lighting. Tethering is a crucial process during production, and therefore the camera must be able to do so with Capture One, but not all cameras are compatible. And there you have it, my top 5 must-have criteria, not to mention a separate list of less important, nice to-haves to keep this video short, like the fast flash sync speed, good battery life, and decent video features, blah blah blah. But sticking to the top essential 5, what do we have when we put everything together? When we look at this list, we can immediately narrow down to a handful of cameras with similar features and specs. My first choice goes to the Canon R5, R5C, R5 Mark II, Nikon Z8 and 9, Sony A7R5 or A1, which all meet these criteria and good enough for 90 to 95% of commercial shoots out there, with good cropping flexibility. The only exception is accommodating those really extreme crops I mentioned earlier, which will probably need 100 or more megapixels. Second choice goes to Fujifilm, who didn't meet the top choice because of spotty firmware and marginal rentability. Tied for second is Leica, also marginal rentability and marginal tethering support by Capture One. And I'll group Pentax and Olympus together. Not enough pixels, not enough rental options, incompatible with Capture One, therefore not a choice at all. And that basically covers all of them. Let me know your thoughts. Like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.